In every courtroom, truth is supposed to be sacred. Every word spoken under oath carries weight, shaping the lives and futures of those on trial. But what happens when a witness, someone trusted to bring clarity, chooses instead to twist the truth? What happens when a lie isn't just a slip of the tongue, but a calculated move to destroy another person's life? Today, we unravel the story of a witness who thought lies could win the day, only to discover that deception always demands a price. Before we begin, welcome to our channel. If you love gripping stories of justice, betrayal, and truth, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. We bring you powerful stories like this every day, stories that not only keep you on the edge of your seat, but also leave you with a lesson you'll never forget. The case began like any other. A high-stakes trial, tension in the air, and the jury watching closely as every detail unfolded. The defendant stood accused of a serious crime, and the prosecution relied heavily on the testimony of a key witness. This witness walked into the courtroom with confidence, dressed sharply, speaking in a voice that carried authority. The jurors leaned in, the judge listened carefully, and the lawyers adjusted their strategies as the words poured out. On the surface, it seemed convincing. It seemed airtight. But beneath that polished delivery, something was wrong. The story didn't line up perfectly. Little cracks began to show. Yet at that moment, nobody could prove it. Nobody wanted to believe that someone sworn to tell the truth would stand there and deliberately fabricate a story. Still, the seeds of doubt were planted. As the trial progressed, the defense pressed harder. They replayed details, asked the same questions from different angles, and slowly, the cracks widened. The witness grew defensive, fumbling over small inconsistencies, but still tried to maintain control. For a while, it looked like the lie might hold. After all, in the heat of a courtroom, perception often matters more than perfection. But the truth has a strange way of resurfacing. Documents began to appear. Phone records, emails, things the witness had not accounted for. Each one contradicted a piece of testimony. Each one chipped away at the credibility that had seemed so strong at the beginning. The defense lawyer leaned into it, circling like a hawk, sensing weakness. And the jury? They noticed. Their eyes, once fixed with trust, now narrowed with suspicion. The turning point came when a single piece of evidence landed on the judge's desk. Something undeniable, something that revealed the lie for what it was. The courtroom shifted in an instant. Gasps echoed through the room. The witness who once seemed untouchable was now cornered, exposed, and trembling. But this was just the beginning, because in the world of law, lying under oath isn't just dishonorable, it's a crime. And the consequences were about to change everything for that witness. The courtroom was silent, so silent you could hear the sound of papers shuffling as the defense lawyer placed the evidence on the stand. The witness froze, their face, once filled with confidence, drained of color. It was as if the entire courtroom could see the weight of guilt pressing down on them. Every eye in the room locked onto that single figure who had until now been the prosecution's star. The judge leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "Would you like to explain this?" he asked, his tone sharp but controlled. The witness stammered, words tumbling out without direction. What had once been a rehearsed performance now crumbled into panic. The jury shifted uncomfortably, realizing that much of what they had just believed might have been built on lies. The defense attorney pressed further. "You swore an oath to tell the truth," they reminded, holding up the very oath, signed before testimony. "And yet, this evidence shows otherwise." The words struck like hammers. The once confident witness now sat hunched, their voice breaking under the weight of exposure. Outside the courtroom, news spread quickly. Journalists scribbled notes, headlines forming in their minds. Star witness collapses under pressure. Key testimony exposed as lie. The public was already buzzing, and inside, the trial had shifted completely. For the defendant, who had sat quietly through the storm, there was a flicker of hope. They had been painted as guilty by the very words of this witness. But now, as the truth came forward, the scales began to tilt. Suddenly, the defense's arguments didn't just sound like theories, they sounded like reality. The judge, stern and unmoving, reminded the witness of the gravity of the situation. You are under oath. Any attempt to mislead this court is perjury. Do you understand? The witness nodded weakly, their voice too broken to respond clearly. The jury's faces told the story. Trust had been shattered, and once trust is gone, it never returns. The defense team seized the moment. With careful precision, they replayed the witness's earlier statements, lining them up against the undeniable evidence. Each contradiction was highlighted, each falsehood exposed. What had once seemed like a strong foundation was now rubble, collapsing under its own weight. And then came the most devastating blow, proof that the witness had been motivated. Money, promises, hidden connections that had never been disclosed. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, the judge calling for order. But the damage was done. The lie was no longer just a slip, it was a betrayal of justice itself. The jurors' expressions grew darker, reflecting not just disappointment, but anger. They had been manipulated, and no jury forgets being deceived. The prosecution scrambled to recover, but the following morning, the courtroom was filled with a different kind of energy. The witness entered slowly, no longer with the stride of someone in control, but with the heavy steps of a person waiting for judgment. The jury members didn't even attempt to hide their disappointment. Some wouldn't look at the witness at all. The lie had changed everything. The defense lawyer rose again, calm but relentless. Yesterday, we revealed inconsistencies in your testimony, they said. Today, we will show the consequences of those lies. The room grew tense as new documents were displayed, emails, financial records, and secret communications. Piece by piece, they exposed how the witness had been influenced, pressured, and perhaps even bribed. The witness tried to defend themselves. They claimed confusion, stress, and faulty memory, but their excuses rang hollow. The jury knew the difference between a mistake and a deliberate attempt to deceive, and this was no mistake. This was betrayal. The judge's face was stern, unyielding. This court is not a stage for fabricated stories, he declared. When you took the oath, you promised honesty. Breaking that promise is not just a crime, it is an assault on justice itself. His words echoed across the room, heavy and final. For the defendant, this was vindication. For days, they had been painted as guilty, their life nearly destroyed by lies. Now, the truth began to emerge, and with it, the possibility of freedom. Tears formed in their eyes as they watched the witness collapse under the weight of their own falsehoods. The prosecutor tried desperately to salvage the case, but the damage was irreversible. Every question now led back to the witness's credibility, or rather, the lack of it. The very foundation of the prosecution's argument had been built on sand, and the tide had washed it away. Then came the turning point. The judge allowed the defense to submit a motion that would shift the entire trial. The false testimony didn't just weaken the case, it destroyed it. With every passing moment, the defense grew stronger, while the prosecution stumbled. The witness, once the star, had become the downfall. But outside the courtroom, the story had taken on a life of its own. Reporters broadcast the scandal across the nation. Commentators spoke of betrayal, of the danger of lies in the pursuit of justice. People who had never cared about this case now watched with fascination, waiting to see the final outcome. The witness had not only failed in their attempt to deceive the court, they had become a symbol of dishonor. The judge adjourned for the day, but his words lingered in the air. This court will not tolerate perjury, and the consequences of such actions will be severe. The witness sank lower in their seat, knowing that the walls were closing in. The jurors filed out, whispering to one another, their verdict already beginning to take shape. What had once been uncertain was now crystal clear. The lie had sealed the witness's fate, and justice was preparing to deliver its blow. But the true punishment was still ahead, because in the final act, the courtroom would not only pass judgment. The final day of the trial arrived with an air of inevitability. The witness, once confident and composed, now sat pale and broken, their eyes avoiding the stares of the jurors, lawyers, and even the public that filled the gallery. The courtroom no longer saw them as a figure of authority, but as a cautionary tale. The defense lawyer stood tall, delivering a closing statement that resonated with every ear in the room. Justice is built on truth, they said. When lies enter this sacred space, they do not simply distort a case, they endanger lives. Today, we have seen what dishonesty can do. We must not let it prevail. The jury deliberated for hours, but their decision was inevitable. The defendant, once facing ruin, was acquitted. Relief washed over them, their family embracing through tears. For them, truth had won. For the witness, however, the nightmare was only beginning. The judge's voice cut through the silence. Perjury is a crime that strikes at the very heart of justice. You attempted to manipulate this court, to destroy a life with falsehoods. Now, you will face the consequences. His gavel struck like thunder. The witness was arrested on the spot, charged with lying under oath, their reputation shattered, their future destroyed. The cameras outside the courthouse captured the fall in real time. A once respected figure, now handcuffed, surrounded by flashing lights and jeering crowds. The story spread across every channel, every headline. The witness who lied and paid the price. In the end, this trial wasn't just about one defendant or one case. It was a reminder to the world that lies, no matter how carefully crafted, cannot escape the weight of truth. Justice may stumble, but it does not fall. The truth always finds its way to the surface. As the courtroom emptied for the last time, the message lingered. Integrity is priceless, and betrayal has a cost too high to bear. The witness thought they could outsmart the system, but the system is built to uncover deceit, and when it does, the fall is merciless. To everyone watching, let this be a lesson. Words have power, oaths have meaning, and truth is the only foundation strong enough to hold the weight of justice. Lies may shine for a moment, but they burn everything in their path, including the liar. If you've been with us through this powerful story, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more gripping courtroom tales and real-life twists that reveal the strength of truth. Your support helps us bring more stories that don't just entertain, but remind us of the values that matter most. Thank you for watching. Stay true, stay just, and remember, lies can destroy, but truth will always endure. Until next time, take care.